Gehenna was an isolated human world that endured many of the horrors of the Old Night. Its society was fairly technically advanced, but unfortunately, its population was overcome with genetic diseases. By the time of the Great Crusade, there was less than 1,000 Gennans that were still remaining, many of them kept alive in life pods. When this world, classified as 9315 by the expeditionary fleets of the Crusade, was rediscovered by the Imperium, they initially accepted Imperial rule peacefully. But after several Terran years of Imperial occupation, all contact with the world was lost. It was the World Eaters Legion under their Primarch Angron who was dispatched to investigate. The negotiations quickly broke down with the Gennans when it was discovered that they had modified their own forms and were now using an apparent form of abominable intelligence. Angron ordered a hastily invasion of the planet, and per the Primarch's tradition, the World Eaters demanded that the planet be subjugated within 31 solar hours. This corresponded to the traditional Nusarian Day, the homeworld of the Primarch Angron. Failure to do so would result in the punishment known as dissemination, in which 1 out of every 10 World Eaters were to be executed. This barbaric form of punishment that was really a threat led to a hastily and poorly executed landing on the planet under the command of the veteran Terran-born Centurion Mago of the 18th Company. Mago was desperate to avoid yet another series of death amongst his own Legion brothers. Yet when the World Eater forces reached the Gehenna's surface, they faced no resistance, for the entire planetary population actually consisted of billions of artificially intelligent simulacrums designed to appear human. These simple, unarmed constructs used their sheer numbers to swarm the Astartes, killing Space Marine after Space Marine no matter how many simulacrums were destroyed. Despite Mago's best efforts, for a time it seemed that the World Eaters would be overrun. Though the World Eaters finally received adequate heavy armor and artillery support just as their forces breached and broke their way inside the confines of the main Gehenna city, the World Eaters once again failed to meet their Primarch's time frame of 31 solar hours to subjugate the planet, and they were forced to withdraw to the flagship the Conqueror. But aboard the Conqueror, Angron ordered the next round of dissemination for his legion. Mago refused, which amused the Primarch, who instead ordered Mago to personally execute the first World Eater who would die. When Mago again refused, Angron fell into a burning rage that saw him begin to murder dozens of his own gene sons. It wasn't until the librarians of the Legion under the command of Lectio Primus Furius that they were able to finally subdue Angron by cyclically forcing him to an unconscious state, though it cost the lives of several battle brothers. Angron would not wake from his slumber, and soon a crisis erupted within the World Eaters over what action should be taken. During this time of instability, Apothecary Galen Solrak announced that he had created a stable method of implanting the Butcher's nails within the Astartes by reverse engineering the Gehenna technology. The World Eaters could now implant these archaeotech devices into warriors throughout the Legion, as Angron had demanded since assuming control of the Legion. Mago found himself absolutely horrified at the prospect of his legion being overwhelmed by the uncontrollable rage produced by the Butcher's nails, and began to plot with his fellow Terran veterans of the Warhounds to prevent such an outcome and to halt the Apothecary's plan. Mago subsequently made an appeal to Centurion Karn and pleaded with him to reverse the dark direction that their legion was taking. However, his call for change fell on deaf ears. This forced Magos to take more drastic measures, and he gathered other disenchanted World Eaters that were loyal to him aboard the frigate Houndstooth. They plotted to destroy the Apothecary's equipment before he could fully perfect the Butcher's nails implants for mass production and implantation. However, this attempt failed, and shortly thereafter, Karn became the first World Eater Legionnaire to be successfully imbued with the Butcher's nails. With this initial success, Serlak proceeded to quickly implant a further 1,000 World Eaters with the cortical implants. At this time, Angron awoke from his slumber, and with the Primarch leading these newly enhanced Legionnaires, the World Eaters immediately launched a counterattack against the Gennans. These warriors were now empowered by the rage brought to them by the Butcher's nails. They slaughtered all those they came across, despite a massive number of simulacrum arrayed against them. Thanks to the Apothecary's continued efforts, through his reverse engineering of the Gehenna technology, he was able to localize and pinpoint the location of the command signals that were controlling the actions of the simulacrums. By tracing the signals, the World Eaters discovered the shriveled remains of the last true living Gennans where they lay in their life pods. There were only a little more than 1,000 true Gennans, with each mentally controlling these robots. The Genins pleaded with the bloodthirsty World Eaters to be spared, but Karn replied that the galaxy belonged to the Imperium and proceeded to massacre all of them. Meanwhile, Mago and his conspirators felt that they had no option left to save their legion. They plotted to subdue Angron, Karn, and the other World Eaters who had been imbued with the Butcher's nails. They intended to bring him before the Emperor himself for judgment. After the massacre of the Genins was carried out, the World Eaters on the surface were confronted by Mago and his supporters. They pleaded with the Primarch and Karn to halt the madness, but once again their pleas were ignored, and soon a battle broke out between both factions. During the subsequent fighting, Mago was confronted and then beset by his former friend Karn, and before he was beheaded, made a final declaration. The Legion would be damned by their actions and the dark path that Angron was forcing them to walk. Mago's final words would later prove to be prophetic. With the death of their commander, the remaining rebels halted in mid-battle and submitted themselves for Angron's judgment. With the Legion once again united, the World Eaters proceeded to scour the surface of Genna clean of life, leaving no structure intact and no Genin life alive in a single night of monumental bloodshed. It was said that the psychic death screams of the dying were audible to Imperial astropaths across half a sector. In the aftermath of this massacre, calls of censure against the World Eaters resounded within the Terran Council. Soon after, the Primarch Leman Russ and his Space Wolf Legion were dispatched to Genna to confront Angron and his World Eaters, to halt the implantation of the deadly Butcher's nails. And that's the lore on the pacification of Genna, or I guess you could say the Space Marines versus the human empire that controls robots. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you guys so much for watching and listening. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, share, tell your friends, and yeah, I really appreciate everything. This is Gershwan with One Mind Syndicate signing out.
Always used to put my freedom first in any situation.